everyone, and welcome to the first episode of the podcast, The Maritime Witch. I will be your host, Linda, along with my trusty sidekick, Sean.
Hello, everybody.
Sean is my husband. He's my everything technical. Most times he is my voice of reason, but most importantly, he is my best friend. And he also wrote the delightfully whimsical intro for this podcast.
You're too kind.
He is along for moral support. I'm a little bit out of my comfort zone because this is the first awkward episode. Hopefully it'll get a little easier as we move forward. You can find me on my YouTube channel. I'll be broadcasting on Podbean, and I also have a Facebook page. The Facebook page will be utilized as a visual to each episode, as well as updates and anything upcoming. But the visual side, some of the things that I talk about in the podcast, because it is strictly at this point audio and not video. So I will be posting some pictures, like I said, of some of the things that we will discuss in the content of each episode. Just as a reference, if there's something that you want to go back and see or want to follow up on in more detail. It is my plan to air a new episode every 2 weeks. So this episode, being the first, is an introduction to me and what I hope this podcast will encompass, and a look ahead at some content that I hope to explore in some future episodes. So, who am I? Well, my name is Linda, and I am a practitioner of witchcraft. I live on the south shore of Nova Scotia. I identify as a solitary eclectic witch. I draw from many different aspects of the craft. I can't really ever remember not having a fascination with witchcraft, the occult, paranormal, metaphysical worlds, as well as always being completely drawn to nature. Having been a maritime girl my entire life, I have always had a love of the ocean. The ocean itself I find terrifying. I don't want to be in it, and I don't want to be on it, but I could spend countless hours on the shores alongside of it. Oceanside is where I need to go to rejuvenate and relieve my stress and heal my soul. My husband tells me that I hang on to stress.
Just a little bit.
But I can't imagine ever being too far away from the ocean. We're fortunate that we're only probably ever a 10-20 minute drive to get to some semblance of the ocean. This isn't a how-to podcast, and it's not a recruitment. My plan is to discuss subjects that I have found interesting and how I do things. As I said before, there's no right way or wrong way in the craft, and I hope that you will tune in and follow along on my journey. I am continuously exploring and learning, and there is a wealth of information and knowledge to share and chat about. So a little bit more about me. I was born in England and moved to Canada when I was 5. I have grown up in a small maritime community. I was the kid that was always bringing home rocks, shells, twigs, flowers, acorns, chestnuts. I'd spend hours outside searching water pools, ponds, puddles in our driveway. I always wanted to be outside exploring nature. And I haven't wavered much as an adult, although I do find comfort curling up under a fuzzy blanket with a bowl of popcorn and binge watching something delightfully witchy and fantastical. I had a small group of friends growing up, and that has also carried over into adulthood. I have a very small social circle, but am content with my own company, although some days I would like to get away from myself.
And me.
I think we both have days where we'd like to get away from each other. But So what's next? So beginning witchcraft. There are many different pathways that fall under the umbrella of witchcraft. My advice to anyone interested is to find probably a great beginner's book. One in particular that I loved when I started was Wicca Demystified, a guide for practitioners, family, and friends by author Brian Langford. This book is very informative and answers so many questions, not just for somebody who wants to follow a Wiccan pathway, but also for family members. It answers a lot of questions for family members as well, is what I'm trying to say.
Yes, because at first I had a lot of questions too. I mean, I know you've always been into this, but when you really get into this, I mean, you and I walk different paths.
Yes, we do.
And that's perfectly okay.
High respect for that as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we live underneath the same roof, but, you know, we have different beliefs, and that's perfectly fine. But when you first get into this, I had a lot of questions, and I was pretty lucky, because, I mean, I could have been worse. I could have went looking for some information on the on the internet.
Well, the internet, too, is a wealth of information. Obviously, you have to be careful what you look for on the internet. You can find the answer to every question on the internet. I shouldn't say every question. You can find whatever answer you're looking for on the internet.
Yes.
So, just make sure that if you are doing any research that, you're obviously, going to reputable sites. And another great place to go to is social media groups. And depending on where you're located, there may be even a local group in your area to reach out to. And I mean, you may even know somebody personally that you could reach out to as a mentor or as a guide to just point you in the right direction of, following the pathway, the basics that you want to learn. And once you're comfortable having learned the basics, there are some things with the craft that I do plan, some of the basics that I do plan to cover in content in future episodes. It is then your choice to remain at that comfort level if you wish to, or to expand your knowledge into a more diverse area of the craft that you find a calling or a passion for. I know some practitioners that have mastered Reiki, mediumship, tarot and oracle readings, crystal healing. I know people that do tea leaf readings. I mean, the list really just goes on. Like, it is a huge umbrella of the metaphysical world. And that those things have become their fashion, not their fashion, although they are quite fashionable, I do have to say. Their passion and their focus. For me personally, I'm passionate about many aspects. So my journey as a student will never be over. And this podcast actually serves as another facet of my journey, sharing and learning as I go. Witchcraft is definitely a matter of individual wants and needs. Some prefer to practice as a solitary like myself, while others wish to seek out a group and be a part of a coven and practice with like-minded souls. Larger population centers would probably offer you more of an option in that aspect. Although being in a small community, I'm pleasantly surprised to see how many people are actually part of the craft now that the metaphysical world is kind of on an upswing and just more in the public eye. People are taking more of an interest. They're supporting events that are taking place in areas. My sound guy is going to scowl at me as I turn the pages of my notes.
Yeah, I think you're okay.
One important thing to remember, however, is that this is your pathway and this is your journey. And while it is certainly okay to reach out for guidance or mentorship, no one should ever force you to do things their way or ever expect you to do something that you feel uncomfortable doing. Don't ever put yourself in harm's way or in an unsafe situation. Another thing to be cautious of is what people are offering. I know that there are a lot of online schools. There are workshops that pop up. I'm not saying don't seek these things out, because I think some of them are absolutely fantastic tools. I'm just saying be cautious of what is being offered, what is being guaranteed to you, and how far you have to dig in your pockets to get it. So myself, I do practice solitary. It was the way that I learned and the way that I am comfortable practicing. I do, however, have a group of 5 beautiful souls with whom I have a like mind with. And while they also do not follow the same pathway as I do, we share a like-mindedness of many aspects of the craft. Our journeys, however, remain highly individual. I am hoping to feature these 5 beautiful ladies in a future special episode further down in my podcast journey. Another easy place to start your journey is to create for yourself a special sacred space. My husband and I moved 10 years ago, and the second bedroom in our house had an incredibly large walk-in closet. The second bedroom was only ever used as storage, so I took over the closet as a sacred space. I painted the walls, put up some shelves and some art, and filled it with everything that I had accumulated thus far on my journey. I have so many treasures that now that walk-in closet is just a craft space, and that spare bedroom is now the Zen Den. And actually, episode 2 is going to be about creating that sacred space for yourself and stockpiling your witchy cupboard. So having said all of that, let's take a look at what else this podcast will offer. As I said before, there will be some reoccurring segments. I'm going to do an up close and personal on a botanical. Well, I will feature an herb, plant, spice, or tree, as well as focus on a crystal or gemstone and its properties. Also, there will be a special event shout out for the dates encompassed by the next podcast. If you want to give a birthday or anniversary shout out, just drop me an email and I will do my very best to get you all on there, as well as any fairs or events that may be going on in your area. You just need to reach out to the Maritime Witch at gmail.com. I've done some research on podcasts, and apparently episode 7 is where podcasts go to die. So I am quite determined that I will make it to episode 8 and hopefully beyond that. I'm also looking forward to having some special guests join me for some future episodes to discuss their journey into the metaphysical world. I have developed a very long arms list of topics to dive into. Some episodes will lend more to the maritime aspect, a bit more, journeying into the paranormal and the history of the area, as well as touching on episodes that are nature-based. My husband and I are both previous paranormal investigators, so I'm sure that we can rustle up some good scary episodes. Stay tuned, because we will be all over the map with topics and content. It's funny, actually, that the first episode was released on April 30th. I actually chose this date as the first episode from backdating or backtracking on the calendar from a future special episode that will air as the Halloween special. And it worked out great because today, April 30th, is Witches' Night, which then leads into Beltane. So we can talk about that for a little bit. But before we do, we will be right back.
Science fiction.
A world where your imagination has no limits.
And you can explore those limitless boundaries at sci-fipulse.net. And check out the SFP Now podcast on iTunes and Spotify. Because if you are listening to a really good science fiction podcast, well then,
you're listening to SFP Now.
And just like magic, we are back. Witches' Night, celebrated in Germany, is when witches come together and have a large celebration and await the arrival of spring. It also marks the halfway point to Samhain. Mostly celebrated throughout Europe, it actually started out as an occasion to protect oneself from witches and has now flipped the old witch switch to now celebrate witches. Then tomorrow, May 1st, we celebrate Beltane. It is known around many places as May Day festivals. It falls midway between the spring equinox and the summer solstice, one of my personal favorites. It's a pagan holiday, one of the 8 Sabbats on the Wheel of the Year. It celebrates spring at its peak and the coming of summer. It's marked by maypoles, dancing, bonfires. Beltane is a fire festival. I actually remember going to a festival when I was in England. Now, we left England when I was 5, so I would have been maybe 3-4 years old. And I remember the girls in their costumes and their flower crowns, and they would be dancing and weaving the ribbons around the maypole. I haven't actually attended anything like that since. Beltane, let's see. Another ritual for Beltane is jumping over the fire as a fertility ritual. I don't recommend a flowy robe if you're going to do that. I also don't recommend dancing naked if you're going to do that. I don't jump, and I am old enough now that I don't need to bring fertility into my life either. There's lots of ways to celebrate. And one thing I found, which I thought was a really nice thing to do, is a Goodwill basket. And you give it to a friend who is in need of care or recovering from an illness. So now let's move on to the botanical section of the podcast.
And the time has come for plants to take back the world so rightfully ours.
So the botanical that I have chosen for this episode is the daisy in honor of Beltane. I'm not going to try to pronounce the Latin names of anything. For anyone who has seen Army of Darkness, we all know how this works out.
oh, come on.
No. I don't want to conjure up anything I can't send back, so we're just going to call it a daisy. Daisies represent love, spirituality, health, positivity, new beginnings, healing, growth, safety, and joy. Dried daisies under your pillow enhance your dreams. And it's actually considered to be one of the first forms of divination that we are introduced to as little girls. And it makes a really nice name for anybody as well.
Probably not a nickname I would want, but
My little daisy. He loves me not. He loves me not. He better love me. What else about the daisy? You can make a tea from the flowers as a healing tonic. That's something that I have never done. I don't forage in the forest. I'm scared of picking something I'm going to poison myself with. So, but if you have, if you are in tune with nature enough that you're safe, but please be careful if you are foraging in the forest, picking wild things, because I don't want anybody to poison themselves. Best really just to go to a greenhouse and buy something from somebody who knows what they're doing. And you can also make a flower crown out of a daisy or out of a string of daisies. And so having said all of that about the daisy, then we will now move on to the crystal and gemstone segment of the podcast.
I want to rock.
The crystal that I have chosen, again, in honor of Beltane, is the rose quartz. It is from the quartz mineral family, associated with the planet Venus and the element of water, and the zodiac signs of Taurus and Libra. Shout out to the Libras. Yay. Woohoo. That's just because my husband is a Libra. It is a pink quartz. It has healing properties, represents self-love, friendship, romance, calming, creativity. It's a cleansing quartz. It brings on relaxation. It's a symbol of love and emotional healing. You can carry a rose quartz in your pocket. You can wear a bracelet, or you can wear a necklace if you wish to attract those things into your life. And so ends the crystal segment of the podcast.
Cue the segue.
So now we are going to do the shout out section of the show. Yay, shout outs. So because this is our first episode, we don't actually have any shout outs. However, yesterday was a big day in our world. April 29th was our wedding anniversary. So yay, shout out to us, 29 years.
Oh, happy anniversary, happy anniversary, happy anniversary, happy anniversary.
Still alive and kicking and haven't killed each other yet. So I think we're on a good run.
I'll get you, my pretty, and your little dog, too.
So I'm coming to a close of the first awkward episode. Hopefully episode 2 won't be quite so awkward. Again, episode 2 is going to be about creating your sacred space and stocking your witchy cupboard. If anybody has any shout outs that they would like to have for the next episode, it will encompass the dates of May 14th to May 27th. I would like to thank Sci-Fi Pulse for giving me a little shout out. I would like to say thank you to those who took time out of their day to listen. I hope you've enjoyed the first episode of the Maritime Witch. I invite you to like the Facebook page for a bit more of the visual side. Also, comments can be directed to the email. I would ask that you be kind and respectful in your comments. Constructive criticism is always welcome. However, being mean and unkind is just completely unnecessary. If you don't like what I'm offering in this podcast, then I wish you the best on your journey and hope you find something that is a better fit for you. And also just want to throw this out there. I don't need you to pray for me, and I don't need to be saved. I'm very, very happy where I am in my life. And if you have any questions or suggestions for topics, again, you can email me at themaritimewitch@gmail.com. I will at this time bid you farewell. I hope you decide to return in 2 weeks' time on May 14th, Mother's Day. So, hey, if you want to do the shout out section, hey, there's going to be lots of moms celebrating that day. Get those mom shout outs in. In the meantime, may the universe find you happy, healthy, and safe until our paths cross again. Blessed be.